Welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Janna, and this is where I share my pottery tips and other snippets of my handmade life from our Bale homestead in the Canadian countryside. I have over 30 years of pottery experience and have been teaching pottery for 25 years. I am here to share my knowledge with you through little tutorials and videos that I hope will inspire you to weave beauty and handmade objects into your life as well. Today in the studio, I will be making dinner plates and giving you tips on how to do the same. I will also be sewing new gusseted linen pillowcases for my guest suites. I invite you to take a deep breath, relax, and enjoy this little space I've created for you to join me.
Welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. Today I'm going to be making some plates actually for us because pottery breaks, and as I heard once said, that's what keeps potters in business. Oh, hello. And with little kids, we've always used our regular dishes. We have never used plastic because I just don't think that's healthy to eat off of or drink out of. Things break from the kids dropping them occasionally, although honestly they've been amazing, and things just break. And over time we've lost a couple plates, so I'm making more for ourselves today. And I decided to use a white clay. Normally I've been using a brown clay to throw with. There's really not a whole lot of difference. They're both cone 6 clays, which means that they fire to a specific temperature. And the only main difference is one of them's a little bit grittier. The brown clay that I use has something called grog in it, which is clay that's been fired and then ground back down again and reintroduced to the clay. There's benefits to having grog in your clay, although for these kinds of pieces it isn't necessary, and it can be a bit abrasive on the wheel. This is a lovely smooth white throwing clay, and I occasionally use it as well. I just wanted something a little bit different for our plates. I wanted something clean and white. I like serving food on really nice clean white plates. A couple weeks ago I also made some Christmas ornaments with the white clay, and I brought both of the brown clay and the white clay Christmas ornaments home to show you. So you can see the glaze that I'm using is a bit translucent, which means I can see a little bit of the clay color through the glaze. You're either going to have glazes that are completely transparent, which will really affect the glaze color. You'll have glazes that are translucent, like these ones, and then you'll have completely opaque glazes, which you will not be able to see the clay color through at all. I have my trusty back grabber chamois thingy here. I think they're also called sticky pads. There's different names for them, but they are really lovely to use underneath bats for things like plates and large pieces where you want to take the piece off the wheel, and sliding it off onto your hand isn't an option. I normally don't weigh my clay, but as you could see in this video, I did for these pieces. I used to be a production potter for years and years, and I know the weight that I used to make for dinner size plates. So instead of guessing, I thought I would just make my life easy and go with that weight, which is 1.5 kilos. I find that weight throws a really nice sized dinner plate. So here we go. I'm going to center this clay and flatten it out more than I normally would, and then I will come back on and explain the process of throwing a plate. Okay, so I have it centered now. Honestly, this clay is a little bit stiff, so it's not centering very easily. I'm going to work with it anyway because I have a whole bag of it, which is why I'm using it up today. So the clay doesn't need to be quite as centered necessarily as it would be if I have to pull up walls. They're going to be more likely to go off center on me. I have it centered, and I flattened it a little bit more than I normally would have if I was making something tall. And then I'm going to go in. Side note, I just got a new pottery sponge, and it's one of those little pleasures in life. I just love those little things where you're excited about a new sponge. I think that's what life is all about. So as I'm throwing right now, I'm super excited about my new sponge. I haven't had a new pottery sponge in a couple of years, and I think it's a good one. So here we go. What I'm going to do is dig a hole in the middle. I'm going to drag it open, but as I'm dragging it open, I'm going to drag it past the base that I have set here, which is this. I'm going to drag it all the way out to here. I find it easier to drag the clay out at this stage than it would be to push this pad flatter and wider. It's just harder to do that. But while I'm dragging it out, I need to be sure that I'm pushing a lot of pressure down on the top of it with the sponge in order to attach it past its base. So as I'm dragging, I'm pushing down and I'm compressing. So as it came past its edge, I just folded it down and pushed really hard. Now it's a wider, flatter piece. I do have a very thick bottom and I'm going to thin that out a little bit more, but I do want to leave the bases on my plates fairly thick because it's such a wide, flat surface. And I find when I cut the wire underneath the piece after it's finished being thrown, the wire tends to bow up just a tiny bit, even though I pull it really tight. So I want to account for that, which means I'm also going to create a very, very subtle dome, not to be confused with what we would call a gravy moat, which is what a lot of beginners end up with, which is exactly what it sounds like. There's a moat going around the corner edge of your plate. We don't want that, but a very slight bow in the middle just to account for that wire slicing, probably a little bit higher in the center. I've worked my way back and forth a bit here because we really want to compress the bottom of this plate. Clay is made up of little particles called platelets, and when we're working on the wheel, we get those platelets in alignment. But if we're always pulling only out, especially on a large flat surface like this, we can end up with something called an S crack, which happens right in the middle, and it actually does look like a little S. And what's happening is the clay is actually untwisting itself as it's being fired. So coming back and forth with a sponge with lots of pressure down really helps align these platelets in different formations so that they're stronger. If you're making a really large piece like a big platter, it's actually very helpful to take a second tiny little piece of clay, it can be the size of a grape, and stick it right in the middle, center that and smooth it out at this stage, because that little pad of clay will have its particles aligned in a different formation than the rest of your piece, and it adds a lot more strength right in that center spot where there's S cracks. So if you're somebody who ends up with a lot of S cracks in the bottom of your pieces, try compressing the bottoms more, especially going inward, because we tend to like to pull out a lot. So back and forth. At this stage, we pretty much have a pad of clay with a tiny little rim on it. What I'm going to do now is lift that rim up a little bit. I'm going to recenter it, which means I'm going to wrap my sponge around it and compress as I'm throwing. And once that is centered, I can start pulling up my wall. My wall is really tiny. It's just a short little wall. And if you've seen my video on bowls and leaving the extra clay underneath for support, you have to do that with plates as well. So if you haven't seen that video, I will make sure to link that at the end, as well as the videos where I made the sprig mold for the deer ornaments I just showed you. And what that means is you just need to leave extra clay underneath here to support the curve of where the base meets the wall. I'm going to pull up the rim now and then we'll fold it over. I'm going to take my wood stick tool now and trim off the extra little bit of clay underneath here. Again, I'm leaving quite a bit of it there so that it can support the curve of the plate. It's easier to clean that little bit of clay out of there now before the rim gets pushed over, because it's hard to get underneath the rim. And just like when you're throwing a bowl, you do want to leave your rim a little bit thicker than you would normally, because you are going to be stretching it wider as you open up this rim, and that will make the clay thinner in that spot. So we don't want to go too thin, so we leave it a little bit on the thick side. Next, I'm going to take this beloved stainless steel rib tool, and I'm going to support the wall with my right hand as I crank the rim over. I'm just simply doing that. I'm tilting it over with the support. I have the rim pushed down now as far as I can get it to go today. You don't want to overdo it. I am working with clay that's a bit on the stiff side, so I am able to push it down more than I would normally. It's better to leave that rim up a little bit and then put your piece back on the wheel once it's dried up just a little bit more and coax that rim down further. As plates dry, the rims do tend to come back up again, so it is often necessary to put your piece back on the wheel and push that rim down further. The next thing I want to do is clean up the inside of the plate. I love the shape of this corner to get to the corner of the inside where it meets the rim. All I do is hold that right in that corner, and I press very gently against where the rim is. This creates a really nice sharp edge there. I love that sharp edge. I find a lot of people who are just beginning to use these tools and beginning to make plates, they end up with this sort of undefined rim, which is fine, but I think it looks nicer to have something really crisp and clean that defines the eating space from the rim space. I go back and forth a few times to get that edge really nice and sharp. Now all that's left is a little sponging. I am going to take the rim right here in the center a little bit, just to smooth everything out nicely, and a nice new sponge on the rim. You always want to make sure you take the time to smooth out the edges and corners of your pieces, because once they're fired, those will become very sharp. So it only takes a second. Have the wheel spinning, clean up your piece nicely before you take it off the wheel. You do have to cut under your piece at this stage. If you wait till it's leather hard, you will have a heck of a time getting it off the bat. I've broken many wires doing that when I've forgotten. So now that it's been cut under, everything's good, I'm going to set it aside, let that rim dry up, and probably come back to it tomorrow to push that rim back down again, let it continue drying, and then trim it. And voila, I have a beautiful throne plate. I will let these dry up, and I will see you at the end of the video. Enjoy.
You round the corner, 4 a.m. Headlights through my window like sunlight blazing in. You lay your head down, square on the wheel, and that horn is sounding through the night's tender still. And I've got to thinking your heart ain't worth this pain. I wanna love you, but it's more of the same. You had me charmed then, when your song rang true. Now cold distant memory, that version of you. First came the cocaine, then came the bus, plastered with our faces, that old version of us. Can't do no more talking or crying out in vain. I wanna love you, but it's more of the same.
I hope you enjoyed today's video. I had fun filming it for you. I'm really enjoying making these videos, and it's a big creative outlet for me. And I really appreciate you being here. I hope you enjoyed watching me make the pillowcases. I really love making them gusseted. A lot of the finer quality pillows that you now buy have that gusset around the edge, and when you make a pillowcase to match that gusset, it makes it so much more squishy and delicious. And of course, the linen. I'm obsessed with linen, as you may know or may not know. And my favorite linen company is called Merchant and Mills. It's quite expensive, so I always wait for it to go on sale. I just bought some more this past week because it is the Black Friday sale, or it was the Black Friday sale. By the time you're watching this, unfortunately, that sale will be over. However, there will probably be one for Boxing Day and other sales coming. So Merchant and Mills linen, if you have not looked up their fabric. They also have cottons and other things, but their linen is beautiful. I will see you in the next video. Thanks again for being here, and much love to you.